I think now investors are catching on really quickly that this is all just product that you're building features around, and no one's actually like building deep tech. Most of these companies, including ourselves, we're not creating models from scratch. You're using open source models, you're using models that are already trained and available, and then you're building on top of these models, and basically you're focused on solving problems that target customers have. So with this kind of companies, there is now never been a better time to launch them quickly and very resource efficient. So you don't need to raise that much money.
Welcome to How I AI, the podcast featuring real people, real stories, and real AI in action. Hi, I'm Brooke, your host and guide on this journey of the real-world impact of artificial intelligence. For over 15 years, I've worked in creative marketing, events, and business strategy, wearing all the hats. I know the struggle of trying to scale and manage all things without burning out. But here's the game changer, AI. This isn't just a podcast. How I AI is a community, a space where curious minds like you come together, share ideas, and I'll also bring you exclusive discounts and insider resources because AI isn't just a trend, it's a shift. And the sooner we embrace it, the more freedom, creativity, and opportunities will unlock. Have you just started exploring AI and feel a bit overwhelmed? Don't worry, I've got you. Jump on a quick start audit call with me so you can walk away with a clear and personalized plan to move forward with more confidence and ease. Join my community of AI adopters like yourself. Plus, grab my free resources, including the AI Get Started guide, or try my How I AI Companion GPT. It pulls insights from my guest interviews along with global reports so you can stay ahead of the curve. Follow the link in the description below to get started. Some people enter the AI space to follow opportunity. Others, like my guest today, enter it to solve a problem they've lived firsthand. Iman is on a mission to make content creation smarter, faster, and more accessible through a no-code AI-powered platform that helps founders and creators repurpose their ideas into high-impact content. In this episode, we unpack what it really looks like to build a lean startup in the age of automation, how she pivoted from media to tech, the lessons she's learned raising capital, and why she believes the next big frontier isn't just AI tools, but AI workflows. Whether you're a bootstrapped builder, a content creator, or a founder trying to do more with less, this conversation is packed with clarity, grounded advice, and inspiration for what's next. All right, let's dive in. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of How I AI. Today, I have a very special guest. Her name is Iman Oubou. She is a scientist turned Miss New York turned entrepreneur, and she's the co-founder of Vocable AI. Iman, I'm so excited to have you here. Please take it away. We'd love to hear all about who you are and what you're up to.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited. By the way, I love the name of the podcast.
Thank you.
I AI. I didn't think of that before, but so I started off my career as a scientist, specifically in cancer research. And initially I went to school thinking I was going to be a doctor, but eventually I would say after trying it out, I've gone on medical missions around the world. I really wanted to see the practical side of it, which was super fulfilling as far as philanthropic work, but I just knew immediately that it was not a career that I was going to potentially thrive in just because it wasn't for my type of personality. Mm-hmm. And I'm grateful that I was able to assess that early on. I think generally speaking, sometimes people get pushed into careers that they know are not for them, but then they insist that they want to continue working in that space. So I was able to really quickly know that's not for me. I went to school after that for cancer research then. So I went from medical practice to biotech research. And after that, I moved to New York and then pursued more of the communication investor relations side of, biotech, which kind of became the starting point for me in marketing and comms and public relations and just really understanding the power of storytelling and the power of also knowing how to resonate with your target customer and target audience. Because initially when I worked in that space, I worked for biotech companies that were creating really complex tech or medicine or whatnot, or science that needed somewhat of explaining to the public that doesn't have a science background. And I was the middle woman in that space. So taking kind of scientific explanations and complex concepts and then turning them into stories that patients and physicians and investors could actually understand. Yeah. And so that's when I realized this is something I want to pursue, and I loved being in that space. And so shortly after, I launched my podcast, which was called Entrepreneurs in Vogue at that point. And it was mostly because I had that pageant experience. I had won Miss New York US in 2015. And I thought, wow, this was, first of all, unpredictable. I didn't think I would ever be in the pageant world. And not only that, but I would never win one. And so now that I have this platform, now that I have this voice, how can I use it to truly become a community change agent? And at that point, I felt also a little lost in my career. So I loved what I did as far as communication, marketing, storytelling, but I didn't think that I fit in the corporate world. I felt like I was too creative and too just a little bit all over the place at that point. I was, I think, 24, 25. And I felt a little restricted in corporate world, especially in New York, even though I had landed my dream job. And so I decided, now that I have a platform, I'm going to launch a podcast just so I can interview other women that maybe took the unconventional road to success. And maybe that'll help me figure out my path as well. So in a way, I launched that podcast selfishly because it felt better than reaching out to women I admired or looked up to and asked them to pick their brain or take them out to coffee and ask them questions. So I thought having a podcast and having the title of Miss New York made it easier to kind of land guests that I really wanted to talk to. But also it was a great way to provide value for them and share their stories with other women that might be facing the same block that I had at the time. And so surprisingly, the podcast took off really quickly. At the time, I think there wasn't a lot of female-focused podcasts, especially around entrepreneurship. This was around 2015. And quickly after that, it turned into its own media brand called Sway. And I would say that's how I accidentally became an entrepreneur. So I never really set out to be one. I felt, again, blocked, misunderstood in the career that I had. And it felt really almost sad for me because that was the career I worked so hard for. I went to school for that. I moved to my dream city. I landed my dream job. Everything was going great, but I was so miserable at work to the point where I couldn't get up and go to work in the morning. I had to come up with excuses. And so I felt like obviously that was a pivot that I didn't know was going to turn out to be the rest of my life. And I never thought of myself as an entrepreneur either, which was really interesting. I've always been into science and I've always been into research. So I thought I would eventually find myself again and then go back to corporate America, but maybe at a different company or a different job. But I kind of ran with it. I saw that I was able to provide value, even though I didn't really have a business plan. I didn't know how to make money from whatever I was doing at the time. And also being in a media space in New York at that age and not having that experience was a little bit difficult to raise money for that, to just even try to compete with all the other media startups that were springing out of New York. So it was a tough journey, but definitely one that led to self-actualization. And also, so through my experience running a media company and being in the content space, then I moved on to obviously launching Vocable, which is now an AI-powered content marketing platform.
Wow. Thank you so much for that beautiful introduction. And I love when I get the opportunity to interview women in the AI space. So again, thank you for being here. And I love that expansion of your intro. I saw so much of myself and my arc of my career in that story as well. And it's very just expanding to share just how the little pieces of the puzzles of our life all fit together in the end. So I'd love to dive in for where exactly and when did AI enter this chat? When did it start to come into your life?
Yes, that's a good question. I think back in 2019 when I was in the midst of basically scaling my media company, we were bootstrapped at that point. We had raised a little bit of angel money, and then we realized, okay, we need to create a sustainable content platform and scale without necessarily hiring too much overhead or bringing on more and more editors in the team and strategists in the team and content writers and ghostwriters because we were a membership model. And we basically offered content creation services and mentorship to a lot of underrepresented voices like women who wanted to leverage storytelling and leverage publishing platforms to be able to market themselves, position themselves as thought leaders. So it was almost a service-based platform, but we were looking around how to turn it into a self-serving product so that we can scale without hiring, again, against the demand that we were getting. And at that point is where I started looking into, obviously, the tech behind how we could do that. And so this was probably around where maybe GPT-2 is what I stumbled upon at the time. And I've always, it's funny because my vision for Sway at the very early stages, even back in 2015, was always to be one of the first publishing platform that helped people with AI to create content so that they could just make it accessible to everybody. Because I saw firsthand how much people struggle with the act of creating content in general. And not only that, but just the act of telling their stories in a way that makes them feel not so vulnerable, but still authentic. And also in a way that could help them resonate better with their target customers and audiences. So I've always seen the potential of artificial intelligence in the near future of how that could be streamlined and level the playing field when it comes to content creation. But I dove deep into it around 2019. And my brother at the time also was helping me. He was not fully officially a team member with Sway, but he definitely helped me build the product, the platform, whenever I needed the tech kind of aspect of it. And so I started picking his brain, right, around, hey, I think we could really automate a lot of the services that we offer to our members so that we can scale more. How do you think we can bring AI into this? And then we started researching it, looking at like models at the time that were available. We were still fine-tuning and I wouldn't say training, but we were fine-tuning kind of GPT-2, which was a lot harder at the time. It was not as advanced. We had to use the playground because there was no interface, of course. That was more what we have now with ChatGPT and other chatbots. So it was a little bit more complicated then, but I definitely saw potential in it. And it was also something I got really excited about, surprisingly, because I didn't consider myself too much of a techie, but I just really got excited about how, even at the time, the output was and how much this would save time for people and how much everything that we're doing could be now applied with AI, and we could offer this to not just 100 of our members, but rather 100,000 people all over the world. And so that's really what got me into AI in the first place. And so, of course, we did our research. We started building in the back end. We didn't really tell people that we were doing that. We were just prototyping. And I think by the time we built our first prototype as part of the last company, that's when ChatGPT started coming around. And we thought, all right, shoot. Now, everything that we've been working on is now mainstream, right? So people are using ChatGPT to create that content. At the time, we would just give it like a topic or whatnot, and would just create an article. So we did that already with prototyping. But ChatGPT did that better, and it did that with an interface that obviously was easier to use. And so then we started thinking, all right, obviously, we need to pivot in some kind of way. So let's think through what we can really build using this. It's a good thing, actually, that ChatGPT came out and people love it and are now more familiar with the concept of AI and how to use it. And so that's when we started looking into, okay, product versus, AI-driven features. What kind of product and workflows can we actually now make easy or automate for people around content creation as a concept, not just become another AI writing tool, because that ChatGPT is already doing that.
Yes, you touched on a couple of things I think are super important, is the ability to pivot right now with all of these new advances coming out in technology. So that's incredible. You're able to just adapt to the environment and still remain valuable. So this was almost 5 years ago now, if not about more. And flash forward to today, we have way more than ChatGPT. I would love to hear, what's your current tech stack?
Yeah. Well, it's interesting. It's funny. I was using Vocable yesterday to create a few scripts for my upcoming videos, and it gave me a really interesting script for YouTube video around how I built, I think it was called, I built an AI during the hype cycle, and here's what I learned. And it was almost so spot on, and this is not to hype up my own platform, but I'm a little biased. And I was like reading through it, And I was actually really impressed because it was almost word for word the kind of experience I've gone through. Because yes, I did build an AI startup in the midst of the hype cycle, even though technically I started way before the hype cycle. But when the hype cycle kind of took off with everything kind of with ChatGPT wrappers, we were still kind of in that space. We were also building another AI writing tool, what people would call a ChatGPT wrapper. But I think one of the biggest thing we've done differently, and we continue to do now, is really be plugged in with our customers and listen to the actual pain points people have around content creation as a life cycle versus the act of creating the content or generating the content. Obviously, there are so many tools now that where you can just go put in a prompt and it gives you an image, a post, or a caption, or an article. But I think content creation that people want to achieve, right? So actual content marketing, there's a lot more to it.
Right.
There's a lot more that goes into creating content that actually converts, that actually sells, that actually resonates with your audience. It's not just writing a prompt and coming up with the idea on the day of and then posting and then hoping for the best, which I think these tools are helpful to do that. If you come up with an idea, I'm like, oh, actually, I want to post about this. Let me quickly do this. So it's a quick fix versus establishing an actual system that allows you to consistently do content right at scale. So that's our vision, at least for the product. I'm not interested in creating another AI writing tool or AI tool in general that helps you with one task. I'm looking at the entire workflow, all multi-channel content workflow, right? So there are so many channels now that people are managing. And especially when we're talking about small businesses, which is my target audience, because I know that's where the biggest need is.
Yes.
We're talking about maybe one or two people in the team that are managing maybe 10 channels and then having to post 30 days of content across all of these channels and then figuring out what that narrative is, what the brand story is, what kind of posts are actually doing well, what story hooks can we use to explain this concept and really resonate with it. So there's a lot more that goes into it. And I think that's what I bring to the table as a founder, as opposed to, I feel like a lot of our competition is the domain expertise. I've been doing content marketing in different areas from an agency perspective, from a startup perspective. I consulted for other businesses and content marketing teams. So I've seen the struggles from big teams all the way to a one-person team.
Yes.
And I just understand the different process that it takes to actually land a content marketing strategy that works well for you, that you can scale over time. And so going back to just how we pivoted is we started thinking about what is the current workflow, and not only how does AI generate the content, but where does AI fit into every step of the workflow to help people minimize the tedious work and really focus more on the creative, or focus more on refining their brand story, because ultimately the brand story is what dictates your content. And that's what dictates why people should buy from you or take your services versus your competitor. And so if you have more time to focus on that and less on the tedious work that goes around content creation, then we've done our job. And so that's how we're approaching our products, is really making sure that workflow is powered by AI versus just the act of creating the content or writing the pieces.
I think that you touched on so many key points. It's about the systems, process, where is your customer and their life cycle journey? How are you speaking to them in that exact moment, rather than just being a machine pumping out content? Very important points there. So beyond Vocable AI, which is an amazing platform, what else do you have in your tech stack?
So I'm a big fan of HeyGen.
Okay.
I've been one of their very early adopters because I just love the idea of not having to film every single time. And I'm actually going to be part of their customer panel coming up because I really want to see how we could potentially integrate that into our workflow with Vocable, because one of the things I've been experimenting with a lot as far as my content personally is coming up with the scripts on Vocable and then taking those scripts and then using HeyGen to create a full UGC reel or AI avatar of mine, or even a full YouTube video just using my AI avatar instead of me actually recording myself day in and day out, because that is, and I've talked about this very openly, I absolutely hate being on camera. And I just hate the act of having to record something constantly. Because I know you have to get ready, you have to have your hair done, you have to have your makeup. And then on top of that, I feel that I'm not fully myself if I'm talking straight to a camera. Like, this is fine when we're having a conversation, but then me having to record and speak to the camera, that's when I feel like I lose the plot. And so being able to have a platform like HeyGen that can just take in my scripts and then use my 11 Labs voice and then my AI avatar that I've cloned, and I've spent a lot of time cloning myself. So I have maybe like 12 clones ready to go.
Great.
Yeah, and different looks and different kind of gestures, different, backgrounds. I really have been refining that clone stack. Now I'm trying to see what is the process there. How can I use Vocable to create 30 days of scripts and video ideas, which Vocable does really well. And then I pull that script straight into HeyGen. And then I can even have just one of my team members handle the rest, right? So they put in the script, then they pick the AI avatar, and then they do the final editing, which is adding the graphics and making the video engaging for the right platform. So that's one major platform I've been using as far as AI content creation. I think I talked to you about Alfana before we, it's actually another deal I saw on AppSumo, and I joined their community, and I really love the idea of just, let's say this podcast that we've just done now, I can just put the full video in there or a link to a YouTube video that I've done before, and it would just turn that into different posts, so it will create the IG version of it, the LinkedIn video of it, the Facebook post, and whatever other types of content I wanted to create. It's really good for repurposing one long form piece of content into 10 different other formats. And it's really good for people who don't want to continuously reinvent the wheel. If a content piece is really performing for you, why not keep repurposing it and leverage that piece of content to get traction in other platforms. 11 Labs is another one I love. And I don't actually use that just for content. I have it plugged in with my HeyGen because I think they have the best voice cloning technology of all the current products. I also use it to visualize my dreams, my life. I actually create this vision on ChatGPT of what a day in my life looks like by December 2025. And then I refine it. I add it to 11 Labs app, which is called 11 Reader. And then I add my voice to it. So it's almost like I'm reading. I'm listening to an audiobook of myself talking about what my day in the life looks like at the end of this year. And it's actually a really interesting exercise because you would get goosebumps, but it feels so real. So it's a great way to help you visualize your life or what your dreams look like in reality, So that's an interesting kind of product. I think these from the content creation are the ones I use the most. I've been looking at other AI-powered products like Planable, who are great at social media management and just scheduling, publishing, and tracking your content. So then that's basically the second half of the content lifecycle. So now that I've created all the content, especially in batches, which I definitely advise people to do that because it helps you just get rid of that anxiety of having to come up with content on a daily basis. So I batch create 30 days of content. I create the supporting assets using HeyGen, 11 Labs, anything else, Alfana, and then I upload them to a Planable to schedule and basically get them published and track their performance. It's a good system. It's a 5-step system that I have actually talked about quite a lot on my social channels and webinars that I've done. And so it's 5 steps and I think 4 different tech platforms.
I love that. Keep it simple. Don't get too distracted. I've seen your work in the AI clone space. That's really incredible. I haven't made a clone myself yet.
Oh, you have to get on it. You'll be so excited to see how much it evolves. Because I just compared my clone in September and then the clones I've just done 2 weeks ago, or actually even 2 days ago. And it is incredibly different. We've come a long way just in a few months. So you also see the evolution of the technology, which is really great. They still struggle a little bit with the lips and the mouth.
Oh, okay.
At least my clone does.
Yeah.
But I hope that's something they'll probably fix here soon.
Okay, good. Good to hear. I am super interested about what you just spoke about, blending personal growth and self-development in AI. It's something I'm a bit passionate about, is using this tool for good and seeing the positive outlook and benefits that we can use this technology for. I actually have a friend that does something very similar. He records affirmations and mantras, and that's all he listens to in his headphones, and it helps him build that vision and reprogram his subconscious. So that's a really cool tidbit that you shared. I'm going to look into doing that for myself, because that's something I've been working on, reprogramming and getting in that state of my future dream life. So of this simple tech stack, and I love, by the way, how affordable your solutions are as well, what would you say you pay monthly or annually on them? I always think that's an important question to ask.
Yeah, definitely. I think a few of them are free. Like Napkin is free, which is more graphics based. So I would say total probably is less than 500 a month.
Okay.
Yeah, less than 500. And I try to keep it very lean, especially also I don't use a lot of them all at once. So if I don't need to use a couple of them for a certain period of time, then I just cancel and I resubscribe later when I need them the most. But I think they are all affordable in a way where, first of all, as a business, you can expense that. So I think as a business owner, if you're listening to this, don't ever shy away from being more efficient, because it pays for itself eventually, and you're able to do more with less. So it's definitely worth the investment. And the only thing you want to make sure of is that the tool actually works for you. And that's why a lot of these tools have trial periods. So again, not every tool is for everyone. We have customers that love Vocable, for example, because it just makes sense for them, and they're customers that just don't see the value in it because they're maybe not creating as much content throughout the month, or maybe they just prefer to just prompt ChatGPT and then move on. So again, it depends on your use cases. And so that's another, I think, important step before you figure out what your tech stack is. You got to know what your process is and where your bottlenecks are, what your team looks like as far as who's using AI, who's using these tools, who's going to be managing each of these tools. Again, especially when you have a small business, you want to not overwhelm yourself and have to do it all yourself. Even with AI, it's great to think I can do it all, but it's always good to see, okay, this person can manage Vocable, for example, or this person can manage my video editing. So knowing what your process looks like, what your team looks like, and then where your biggest bottlenecks are, and start with maybe one or two. Don't try to solve every problem all at once, because that's when you get really overwhelmed quickly and you feel like you don't see the value in AI anymore. I think AI is so great when you're so good at understanding your use cases and then finding the right tool that solves that for you and then solves the pain point for you. And I think a lot of people skip that step, or they ask, oh, what are you using so I can use it too? And I'm like, okay, here's what I'm using, but because this is my process. So I'm not sure if this will be for you, but try it out and see, because it could be different based on your own needs, on your own frequency of maybe publishing, or maybe your own business functions and processes. Everybody's got different things going on. So the biggest step that people definitely skip, and I've seen this because I've done a lot of AI training, is what is your process? And I would ask them and they'd be like, what do you mean? How do you go from A to Z? What does your outcome look like? What are you trying to solve? But then what is the process before that? And I think especially with small businesses, because they're under-resourced sometimes, they don't have those processes documented or the data that goes with it as well. And that's another important part, right? So I think a lot of the AI use cases, to really make the most of it, you want to use your own data to personalize it even more. And again, that's why I think chatbots are good, but they're very versatile, but they're not products that you can personalize very well for your own brand, for your own needs, using your data, right? You can create GPTs, but I don't think they're as really personalized and customizable as I want them to be, at least. So having a grasp on your data and documenting that, and then your process, what your team looks like, your bottlenecks, having that already in place before you think, okay, now let me bring AI, is a very important first step.
I agree. And that is the intention around this podcast, is to really explore how we're each individually approaching it for our own specific use cases, and for the listener to be expanded and see themselves and the interviewer or interviewee and get expanded in different ways. So I love that you touched on that. You already shared a lot about the benefits, time saved, AI clones. What about challenges for AI adoption? Did you run into any of those maybe in the beginning when you had to restructure your business? I'd love to hear about that journey into adoption into your own workflow.
Yeah, I think the biggest challenge was, again, just making sure that the AI was applicable to the outcomes we want to achieve, but also it was resonating with what our brand was about and understood that. Because then if we were able to use platforms where we have some kind of control and flexibility over training, quote unquote, fine tuning or personalizing the AI even more, then that makes it that much more valuable and easier. The challenge is having to constantly explain to AI what we do and who we are constantly every time we want it to step in and help, right?
Yeah.
Quote unquote. I think that was probably the biggest challenge, to find the right approach and also to document our own data that we want to feed into these platforms or even into our own AI solutions that we build internally. What does that look like in order to really make this AI an extension of us versus us having to always treat it like an intern and explain into it, oh my God, here's how you have to do, here's what you need to do. That became a lot more inefficient in the long term.
Yes.
And I want to make sure that myself and my team as well, when we have AI as an application into our business, that we're not wasting time with it, and that is actually making us more efficient, more effective. And so if we're not tracking that progress and seeing those benefits, then we're doing it wrong.
Right.
And so that's, I think, I would say another thing people should keep in mind when, especially if you are a business or a business leader or a C-suite leader looking into implementing AI into different aspects of your business, have a plan in place to track the efficacy and efficiency of the progress and the process using AI. Because if you're not seeing improvement, then obviously you're either doing it wrong or maybe you should just go back to your old way, right? Because the whole point of using AI is to become better and do things faster, gain more creativity, even more clarity, have more strategic insights. So if you're not feeling like you're achieving those in the parts of your business where you've implemented AI and at least have a way to track that, then again, maybe you want to take a step back and reevaluate how you're approaching it. And I feel like also people are not tracking that. So for me, I was tracking speed and quality when it comes to content I was creating. And even when I'm evaluating Vocable now as output and value as a product to our customers, I want to feel like I say I'm my own customer zero. I want to feel like when I'm using Vocable, I've saved hours and then I've saved money. So by not hiring a writer or an editor or whatnot. And then that also my content feels like it's better, it's more engaging, but it didn't take long to get there. So if I have to take days to refine a piece of content because AI didn't do a good job and it gave me maybe like 3 good sentences in there and I have to rework everything, obviously I'm doing it wrong.
Yes.
So evaluating speed and quality is important for different business functions that you implement AI for.
Do you use custom GPTs for that when you're having to give the background or have set personas in place for different projects? Do you lean on custom GPTs a lot?
I did early on.
Okay.
I will say when I looked at the benefits of it, I think it didn't really translate to what I expect out of it.
Okay.
And then this is also with me pulling in a lot of documentations and feeding it into different custom GPTs. I also didn't like the idea of having to constantly have 6 or 10 different GPTs that my team had to like use. And so because of that, actually, then I started thinking more, what are the products out there? What are AI tools that actually have workflows built into them?
Yeah.
So I don't have to create an SEO GPT, a social media caption GPT, a persona generation GPT.
Yes.
Can a platform out there have a step-by-step workflow where all of this AI is already implemented in it? I just feed it my documentation, maybe my business, my brand, and it's able to walk me through every step without having for me to toggle in between GPTs. Because the problem with having different GPTs is that the outcome or the output of each one is not related to the next one. So if you stack together GPTs, they don't talk to each other.
Yes.
And then this is, I think, the next frontier, though. This is agents, right? So I think for me, I'm like, I would love to use GPTs, but if they acted like agents, then that would make more sense.
Yeah.
But that's why I think we're now entering this whole agentic AI frontier, because the whole idea is that if you have different AI assistants or AI agents working for you, then the whole point is that they need to collaborate together, kind of how a team works, right? So you're not working in silos, and you don't want John's output to be copied and pasted into Emma's, folders. It's just a lot. Again, this is what we're talking about, inefficiencies.
Yes.
And so understanding how to stack these AI tools in a way that makes the process seamless and connected is really, to me, how I see the benefit of AI and how every business or every individual should look at it as far as implementation.
How I AI is brought to you in partnership with the Collective AI, a space designed to accelerate your learning and AI adoption. I joined the Collective and it's completely catapulted my learning, expanded my network, and showed me what's possible with AI. Whether you're just starting out, seeking community, or want done-for-you solutions, the Collective gives you the resources to grow your business with AI. How many agents do you lean on at the moment?
I'm mostly focused on customer support agents now because that is probably our biggest,
I can imagine.
I wouldn't say bottleneck, but that's where we're the busiest now because we've launched our platform on AppSumo recently. So there's a lot of great influx of feedback and questions, and which we wanted. We wanted to launch on a platform like AppSumo because we wanted to validate our roadmap. We wanted to really understand the raw feedback from a community that understands AI tools and tools in general, software. A community that has tested a lot of other AI tools in the market and then can actually compare how we compare, not from my bias as a founder or my team's bias, but really our customers telling us how we compare in the market and how we can even position ourselves better. And all that raw feedback is coming to us as an influx. We had a bit of a hard time initially to kind of organize it all into a way that can translate into a roadmap that we can execute on. And also being able to keep up with all of the questions that people are asking. A lot of them sometimes are repetitive, right? We have customer support agents and chatbots that we built specific for that. Actually, my AI clone is filtering a lot of that on the platform, which is great. And I consistently take a lot of the questions and answers that we have and feed it back into my AI clone so that she's able to pull in from my answers and then give the right answers when people go through her before they come to me. So being able to automate that process has helped us do more and also listen to more feedback and implement it quickly, because the whole reason why you want that feedback is you want to execute on the implementation and show that people that you're listening, but also that you are taking in the feedback and releasing new features, improving the product, iterating as you go. And so customer support agents there have been really great. One of the platforms that has been super helpful when it comes to agent building is Beam.ai.
Beam.ai?
Yeah, and so I actually interviewed the founder last year as part of one of my webinars, and they were one of the first people in the market to build AI agents in a way that was easy for anyone to create. So it's very it's easy with the interface, it's very intuitive, and they offer agents across different business functions. So that is basically an extension of what GPTs should be doing, but on the agentic side.
Okay, I'll have to look into that one. So you're validating your roadmap. You're super close to your customer. You have weekly office hours. Switching gears a bit, first let's touch on what it's been like to be a founder in the tech scene, seeking investment, and being in Miami specifically, which seems like a big tech hub on the rise. Why did you choose to live in Miami versus somewhere like Silicon Valley? How do you think it relates and compares? And are you enjoying being here during this process?
Yeah, so I think my answer might be a little different from what most founders would say, because I didn't necessarily pick Miami for work reasons or for business reasons. I think for me, it was probably the best city and the best environment to optimize myself as an individual. And it really was more about work-life balance, because I know I've lived in New York for 13 years and I've done the startup founder in New York for years. And obviously it is probably one of the best cities to be in as far as networking goes, as far as resources and VC money and investors and opportunities and other tech founders that you can collaborate with, and even hubs that they have throughout the city for, startup resources or whatnot. And I did that. And I, from experience, I'm not saying this is the case for everybody else, I felt like I had way more anxiety and I wasn't operating optimally as a founder, because I was also not taking care of myself as an individual, as a woman. And I've spent some time, and my brother kind of made the leap of faith before me and moved to Miami from New York. And I started to come to visit. And first of all, I never thought I would ever live in a city like Miami, because I thought it was more of I wouldn't say party city, but it just felt like it was vacation 24/7. And I'm like, I'm never going to get any work done here. It just feels very too comfortable. People are just living their best life. And then I'm like, okay, but maybe that's a good thing. That's a good thing that I'm able to move to a city where I'm not constantly stressed, that I'm not constantly anxious. And because if I am, then I'm not able to operate right. If, for my business, what they say is like, you can't pour from an empty cup. And I felt like I was an empty cup living in a city like New York. And I imagine it's the same with San Francisco or all the tech hubs, because you're constantly in this race of just competing with other tech founders. So for me, Miami was a great hub. And I think a lot of people are starting to feel that way, because that environment also fosters a more kind of collaborative and being at peace type of feeling. And I think that leads to more excitement about what you're doing and preserving my passion for what I'm building, which is something I lost when I was in New York. I felt like my first startup, it just became very stressful very quickly, and I almost lost interest and the passion I initially had for the projects I was working on. And so I learned a lot when it comes to self-development and also just self-care from my first startup. And that's also why I launched a book and wrote a book about a lot of this learnings before I even started my second company. And now I'm basically practicing what I preach. And Miami has also been able to help me get back in touch with my inner child in a way. I'm more active.
Beautiful.
Play tennis again, which is a sport I loved playing since I was a child and I lost touch with. A lot of my social gatherings are very low key, and it's more around building and fostering true connections versus just running around the city and networking, which I don't think is really that effective anymore in my stage of building a business. So yeah, I think I definitely picked Miami for different reasons, but I do think it is the best choice I've made as far as having a good environment to build a startup, especially in the AI space.
Interesting conversation. People always like to compare Miami, New York, LA. I love that you came here following your sibling. When I lived in Los Angeles, 2 of my siblings followed me there, and they still live there, which is great because I get to go visit.
Yeah.
And I agree. I feel like the entrepreneurial spirit is a bit different in New York versus Miami right now. I lived there for some time as well, and I love the people and the experiences, and it's a hustle, but it's not as intense of a hustle. It's like there's more balance, like you were saying. So it's been something that's keeping me here for now during this phase of my life as well.
Yeah.
So I want to talk a little bit about your experience raising capital. I know that you're in the thick of that right now. If you want to share a bit about that journey as a tech founder, because so many people are in this amazing opportunistic moment to become founders and to create things that have never been created before with this technology. Yeah. So what advice would you like to give? And also first just share your story and your journey and what you're experiencing around it.
Yeah, definitely. So I raised pre-seed capital mostly from family offices and strategic angels initially when we were in the building phase of the product. It made sense because I think early on, people invest in people they trust and they believe in. So I think I was very lucky to have a lot of amazing strategic investors that kind of understood my vision and also have known my work ethic and have known me for a bit and really seen what I'm trying to build. And that wasn't, I would say, too bad as far as the effort I went into it, because it almost seems organic, right? And you want to do that early on. And especially, again, it depends. So let me backtrack. I think when you're building something, a startup, you also have to understand how much of big tech are you, like, do you have any deep tech? Do you have anything proprietary? A lot of those companies require heavy capital before you even go on. So you might want to think VC early on. And also because VCs bring a lot of those resources and experience and operational resources that you need to build companies like that. But if you are building kind of AI products or tools that you think you can go to market with really fast and don't require a lot of tech or deep tech to build initially, then I don't think you want to waste too much time going after VC money early on, because you probably can raise enough from angels and family offices to at least go to market. And that's probably the biggest thing you need in this space right now and during this hype cycle, because I do think we're still in the midst of the hype cycle, especially now going into agentic. That's another hype cycle that I'm seeing kind of emerge where everybody's building AI agents and they're raising money for them. But I think now investors are catching on really quickly that this is all just product that you're building features around, and no one's actually like building deep tech. Most of these companies, including ourselves, we're not creating models from scratch. You're using open source models, you're using models that are already trained and available, and then you're building on top of these models, and basically you're focused on solving problems that, target customers have. So with this kind of companies, there is now never been a better time to launch them quickly and very resource efficient. So you don't need to raise that much money. And I think initially for me, I always thought of the idea of raising capital as a must do before, if you are in a tech space. It almost felt like, everybody else is raising money, I should too. And now I'm thinking about it differently too, because I've talked to a lot of AI founders. I've talked to AI founders that launched their companies and got from 0 to 10 million in ARR in less than 18 months, just because they're, obviously solving a specific problem for a specific niche that they understand very well. They use short form content. They use marketing that is very cheap, not like even ads, to reach their customers. And you don't need to raise money for that kind of products. And so I always advise founders building in the space now is thinking, is my time better spent making revenue and just pushing this product as quick as possible, getting feedback, understanding my customers, getting them to rally behind this and believe in it early on, and then really just building and iterating as I go? Or do I want to spend my time and effort chasing VCs that may or may not see what I'm trying to build? Because that is a very draining process. And that's at least been my experience. And I think every founder, and I've just had a conversation today with a friend who's also raising money for a startup that definitely needs money because it's hardware, it's not software. And I could just see how exhausted and tired and just drained he was, because it is not easy to stand in front of VCs and investors, 10 of them a day, and get that, no, this is not going to work. No, we don't think this is going to be for us. You also have to have that thick skin to be able to get those no's on a daily basis, because you have to really get about almost 5 to 10 meetings a week at least. And if you're getting no after no, that you're only human. That definitely is going to take a toll on you. And it just becomes like, why do I even need to do this anymore? I know I went through that phase. So now, and then I compared that to focusing instead, or shifting my focus on, okay, let me just focus on my customers. Let me just focus on knowing what channels for us drive revenue, what our customers think of our product, because ultimately that's really what matters, right? I want to know what my customers think versus what investors think. Because you're not going to be for every VC. What you're building is not for what every VC is investing in. And so focusing on the customer and then pulling in that revenue instead of pulling in investment, for me, felt like that's what put life back into my soul. And I just felt, okay, this is probably the path I need to be taken. And so again, it differs between different founders. Some people love just raising money, and I know founders that just thrive in that space. And then there are founders that just do better with just growing a business and raising some capital from people who are friends and family, or strategic, which is a lot less draining as a process. And then focusing on just building and then launching quickly and then bringing in revenue and then growing in that phase. And when you do have traction, when you do have revenue and you have customer validation and you've gotten maybe to even product market fit, that at that point it becomes a lot easier to raise money, because ultimately numbers don't lie. If you are in front of investors and say, okay, here's how much we grew. Obviously, our customers love what we're putting out. Here's the growth we've experienced. Here's the traction we have. It's hard to argue against that. So I always try to, especially for first-time founders, if you can launch with just a little capital and get traction before you go into VC, that is probably the best play that you could have for yourself.
I had the opportunity to go to a couple conferences here and hear the founder of Hugging Face and learn a bit about what it means to be centralized and open source. And so you touched a little bit about how you are decentralized and why that matters. For those who might not understand what that means, can you share a little bit about that process and that decision of your infrastructure?
Yeah, so we thought we wanted to go that way, because BitAnswer was this kind of decentralized model AI platform that was easier to build on, because you can fine tune, and also a lot of the data that our users would put into the product would easily kind of be fine tuned. And there's an incentive process to what decentralized is that you have different miners, I think, and my brother could definitely explain this a lot better because this was his side of the project.
Yes.
Miners who are constantly improving on the platform, on the model because of the incentives. So the model is always getting better and it's also cheaper as a way. And initially we thought we wanted to go that way because we wanted to offer a free product initially. And we did. I think 2023, when we launched, for at least 6 months, we were free for a lot of users because, again, of the nature of our target audience, small businesses or solopreneurs who don't have a lot of resources to invest in products would see value in that. But again, I think with Bittenser and all, it just wasn't always stable. So it kind of was in the hype cycle and then it wasn't. So we didn't think that it was probably the best business idea or business plan to have an unstable kind of platform that relied on decentralized, and we didn't have a lot of control at the end of the day. So we decided then to go back to proprietary and also open source models and then fine tune our own models and then just have a little bit more control there. And then at that point, we would offer the product at a small price, but definitely no longer free. But I think with also open source, it gave us the opportunity to eventually have our also users almost train their own model as they continue using the product more and more. Yeah. So every kind of user account will be associated with their own model that continuously gets better with them and grows with them as their content needs grow. Yeah,
that's awesome. One of my favorite questions to ask everybody that I interview is to put your creative hat on, and if you could create something with a magic wand that isn't out there yet, or maybe you're already plotting your second entrepreneurial spirit of what you'd want to create, what would you put out there? And it can be business or it can be personal for AI, a magic wand tool.
I was thinking of taking a break after this. I'm like, I don't think I can bring any more ideas to this world. I need a moment to myself. No, but I think I've been thinking about this idea for a while too. And at some point I was going to pursue it. It's basically turning all of my newsletters, which I subscribe to a lot because obviously, especially AI related newsletters, I have to stay apprised of the news and whatnot. But then I'm realizing that I've subscribed to a lot of them, but I never get to read all of them. Yeah. And I have an email inbox just for newsletters. And then I realize, how do I launch an AI app that basically plugs into all of your email, pulls and extracts all of your email newsletters and turn them into a daily podcast that you listen to the moment you wake up. So every morning at 8 a.m.
Beautiful.
Or 7 a.m., 9 a.m., or on your commute to work, you get this notification from your phone saying, okay, your daily digest is ready. And it's basically your AI pulling all of the newsletters that you subscribe to and then turning all of the content across all of them into this really curated podcast, like 20 minutes. You can pick the duration of it, 20 minutes, an hour, whatever that might be. And then that way you can consume the news and stay updated without the hassle of having to open newsletters, going through each one of them and reading each of those news sources and then figuring out, what do I need to take away from this? I was going to call it newscasts. So don't steal this, okay? So yeah, that would actually, for me, that's just, again, I always think of ideas based on my own pain points and my own things like that I wish I had. And I'm sure there probably is something like this around there. Right. Yeah, that's one thing I was thinking about. And this was probably like almost a year ago.
That's a great idea. Yeah. I agree. I also think of my own personal pain points lately this past week. I've been learning to script for my editing needs and also just experimenting with different platforms. And I'm not the one to take the time always. I'll watch maybe one tutorial when I get onto something. But other than that, I'm just in there exploring. And I found myself having to go to ChatGPT and ask very specific questions. Okay, I'm at this point. How do I do this? Or all of a sudden I'm toggling into this settings and there's 4 different options and I have no idea what it means. Like, think about the audio tech and stuff that happens in a podcast. I'm like, what the heck does that mean? And so I find myself going to ChatGPT and then speaking to it because I prefer conversations to be like, okay, this is what I'm up against. What does this mean? What should I choose? Should I toggle this on or off? How do I go to this step? Why is this not working? I like to speak to it like that way. And I think that it would be great if this was a feature in every platform or tool to just have a voice agent with you to be like, hey, how do I do this? Or this is what I need to do. Here's my goal or outcome. Or here's the very specific problem I'm having. How do I fix it? Descript has a thing called Magic Lord right now where you can talk to it in that way, but it's not there yet.
Yeah.
So that's my magic wand moment.
That's so interesting. I was just having this conversation with a friend of mine who was a former senior Apple product leader. And one of his predictions is, we're talking about agentic AI, but also I needed his kind of feedback on our platform. And he's like, whatever you build next, make sure that there has a conversational feature where you have voice AI. That's almost like leading the way. And then you users, instead of pointing and clicking, which I think now with AI agents, that's going to definitely be gone and disrupted. Most people just want to have a conversation and almost talk to AI and let AI guide them through a product, an interface, a problem. Yeah. And so now with a lot of SaaS, that's something, you don't have to be like a voice-based tool in order to have that feature, that every tool and every software should offer a voice feature where people could just ask it to, hey, create a content plan for me. Hey, can you expand on this plan for me today?
Yes.
Or things like that, instead of having to figure out where that feature is and where to click on the software. Because I do think people are getting that fatigue now.
Yeah.
I talk to a lot of customers and and it's interesting because sometimes you could see also the heat map. And you could see how frustrated people are. They're just clicking everywhere and not knowing where to click. Sometimes people click, and I had a Loom video sent by a customer where she was trying to find her content on the platform. And she clicked in every single button except for the button that says view content. I'm like, see, would be interesting if you could just talk to the platform through AI and say, hey, can you open my content for me? And then that just gets done by AI in the back end.
Yes, my friend calls this pushing pixels. Why are we still moving mouse and pointers around? And the future is like that. So that's interesting that you already see that as a trend. Is there anything else that you see as trends coming out for SaaS companies or just in the tech space of how people are adapting and soon we'll just be speaking voice? What else do you see?
Yeah, I think the biggest challenge now for the industry when it comes to just marrying SaaS and AI, especially with AI agents in the horizon and the true autonomous AI agents, not a lot of what we see now that are more automations, is reinventing and disrupting this user experience and user interface that we just talked about. And I think that's probably, once someone figures this out, like how does human and machine, how do they interact now in the world of agentic AI? That is still a big question mark. And I think once someone figures out a new trend of having humans interact with agents in a very intuitive, seamless way, that's when we're going to hit mass adoption. And so I think everyone I talk to, and it's interesting, I'm doing a webinar on this with Mike Pell, who's the head of the Microsoft Garage. And his whole kind of concept is like human-machine interaction and how do we redisrupt and reinvent the idea of user interface in the era of agentic AI. Because if AI is now taking over and strategizing, executing, completing tasks, and you're basically just supervising from afar, you're not pointing and clicking, what does that interface look like? Since you don't have to, and we've also started experimenting with this because we built our agents, and we haven't really announced it, but we've built our AI content agents, and we've been testing that, and also figure out what is the right time to have even alpha testers on board. And we see that basically you can just connect your entire, let's say, Twitter, and it scrapes it, comes up with all the posts, creates the post for you, then publishes it, and you basically don't have to do anything. But I also can foresee how people feel uncomfortable with that because most people don't want maybe AI to log into their channels and then run that show for them. They just maybe want to specifically focus on this part of the content lifecycle, and then they'll take it over from there on. This is where I think things get a little bit complicated, but also there's only one way to find out is by launching and seeing how people interact with it. But I do think the biggest question mark right now in the industry is what does the human AI agent interface look like moving forward?
I love this conversation. And if you need an alpha user, I'm available.
I just need to come up for air after this AppSumo campaign and do a lot of the product upgrades there. And then I think we can finally then shift our focus on getting the AI agent sharp enough to have some of our users test them out, because I've tested them out a little bit with my own Twitter, because I don't use Twitter. I'm like, okay, if it's going to mess up, it can mess up on Twitter. And it's really interesting. And it's actually fascinating, because also a lot of the features we built for the AI agents is what a lot of our customers now request on the current product. So I think there's a big overlap. And we're basically thought about Vocable's platform now as a stepping stone into agentic AI workflow when it comes to handling their entire content lifecycle. We just need to understand, what does that transition look like, going from AI SaaS and pointing and clicking, which people still love to do and feel comfortable with, to then completely handing over the tasks and the content lifecycle to AI agents that collaborate between each other. And then you're basically the one kind of just approving the posts at the end before going in to get published in each platform.
I was having this thought just last night of how I love sci-fi movies and how they've been predicting the future for so long. And I think about that movie Minority Report with Tom Cruise, and how he interacts with the computers every morning and walks into Gap and they recognize him, and just the future that we're headed towards and what that looks like when we're as humans interacting with these machines. Yeah. I was thinking of compiling and putting together a fun movie list of AI and see what's come true so far.
I'm just surprised we still haven't had the clueless closet yet. That's what I'm waiting for. I'm like, as someone who really wants to streamline that process, because I don't want to also be the kind of person that just wears the same thing over and over again, because I just don't have the time to decide what to wear.
Yeah.
I'm like, how has nobody come up with the clueless closet just yet? Because that seems like something that's doable now.
It does. Why is that not there yet?
I don't know. We might have to collaborate on this and push it up. Speaking of that idea that you were talking about earlier.
One idea. Let's go.
There we go.
We hit on so many amazing points today, but I want to just open the floor for any final remarks. What would you like to leave listeners with? Specifically, which I feel my listeners are beginning their AI journey and they're wanting to be expanded, and any advice for someone who's just entering this space. They're learning, they're getting pulled in all these different directions. Speaking to that.
As people implementing, not building an AI.
Correct.
I think, honestly, the best way to get started, or just to continue building yourself in this space, is having fun with it. I remember, and again, this is coming from someone who's not a techie. Yes. I'm not a software engineer. I'm not an AI machine learning specialist or expert in by any means, but I just know that the reason why I thrive in this space is because I have fun with it. And genuinely, there are times when my parents call me on random idle Tuesday nights. It's like 11 p.m. Like, what are you doing? I'm like, oh, I'm experimenting with Midjourney. I was able to do this and do that. And then I took it from Midjourney to Kling AI and I made it move. And they're like, maybe you should go to sleep. Like, what? I'm always just having fun with it and learning and making that experience fun, as opposed to being like, oh, this is something I have to now do and be part of, and I didn't even ask for that. You know, I think a lot of people come at it from a very like pessimistic, almost like a chore. Oh, I have to learn AI now. But they don't realize that it's actually really fun once you genuinely just maybe dedicate 1 or 2 hours, even a week, start there. And then Google research products that are out there. What can AI do? Or maybe think about, oh, I have this issue here. I wonder how AI can help with this. And even just like you said, you're having conversation with ChatGPT or Claude, using those chatbots to also learn the craft. There are so many ways that now AI is leveling the playing field, and you should literally be excited about that versus seeing it as, oh my God, this is another thing I have to add to my to-do list after work or whatnot, because it genuinely can be a fun process to learn, because you will start seeing how your life will become better and more freed up, because I was able to do a lot now because AI is able to take over. And I was able to figure out how. So I think just having fun with it, dedicate a couple hours a week to learn the craft, be very curious about what's going on, keep up with what's happening. You don't have to understand it all. But yeah, just leverage it as almost a hobby now. And then you're going to start seeing how you can easily implement it into other areas of your life and your work.
Beautiful. I love that final mindset shift. So where can listeners find you? How can they get in contact with you? How can they learn more about Vocable AI?
Yeah, so you can find me on Instagram and LinkedIn, Iman Oubou, Iman Oubou, and Vocable.ai is the platform, so you could definitely learn more about that there. We also have a community that I have on my Instagram, so if you are curious about AI in general, or want to share, insights, or even just want to learn more about Vocable, you can join that community for free as well.
Again, thank you so much for being here. I appreciate your time, and I have so much to look into after our conversation, and I'm going to hit you up about that Clueless Closet project.
Let's do it. And we have so much free time now, so why not?
Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
Wow. I hope today's episode opened your mind to what's possible with AI. Do you have a cool use case on how you're using AI and want to share it? DM me. I'd love to hear more and feature you on my next podcast. Until next time, here's to working smarter, not harder. See you on the next episode of How I AI. This episode was made possible in partnership with the Collective AI, a community designed to help entrepreneurs, creators, and professionals seamlessly integrate AI into their workflows. One of the biggest game changers in my own AI journey was joining this space. It's where I learned, connected, and truly enhanced my understanding of what's possible with AI. And the best part, they offer multiple membership levels to meet you where you are. Whether you want to DIY your AI learning or work with a personalized AI consultant for your business, the Collective has you covered. Learn more and sign up using my exclusive link in the show notes.